So, folks, due to unforeseeable technical difficulties, the Tyler Ezra conversation had to be chopped up into two parts because, the internet died, and you know how it goes. It's it's the nature of the beast. But we still have a good 20 minutes left of this conversation, and seeing these two talk has been some of the most illuminating content related to the centrist mindset of neoliberal conservatives. And I find it really, really, really interesting how Ezra is more than willing to engage with someone like Tyler, when essentially Tyler Cowen and Ezra Klein agree on basically everything. It's just that Tyler Cowen wants to go farther and talks openly about wanting more virgins in media. And that's weird. That's a weird thing. But fundamentally their politics are almost interchangeable. And so let's dive into this once again. We're going to finish this. Let's finish the fight. Okay? Let's go. And for those of you who have forgotten, Tyler Cowen, this man on the left here, is the guy who recently went viral for his post on the Free Press, which is, or was owned by Barry Weiss before it got bought by CBS, and now Barry Weiss is going to be the editor-in-chief of CBS, and we live in hell world, where, the people who greenlit a piece by Tyler Cowen where he talks about how AI actresses are all virgins, so they should be preferable to real women. That person's now going to be in charge of one of the largest networks in the country. And Ezra Klein has no problem talking with him or talking with Tyler Cohen's friend, Robin, who we talked about in the last segment, who advocates for gentle, silent rape as being preferable to cuckoldry. Ezra Klein has no problem hanging out with those two clowns of the far right, So let's, I guess, find out how deep this rabbit hole goes.
Amazing state capacity there. So I think there's something wrong with this theory because I don't think it predicts enough about what societies are doing well and what societies are doing poorly and in what ways.
What should the U.S. federal government, do to prepare for AGI?
Now, if you don't know what AGI, oh god, guys, AGI is artificial general intelligence, which is basically the point at which AI becomes smarter and more capable than human beings, and it's just even asking this question misses the entire the entire reality of what is happening in the world. The reality is that right now OpenAI is pushing Sora 2, their newest iteration of their video making software, and basically they're doubling down and tripling down and quadrupling down on the idea that what makes Sora 2 really special is that it can violate copyright law. And these people see that and they're like, look at us, we're so close to artificial general intelligence. But the reality is we are so far away from that. We are so far away from that, it's crazy.
For those who need more armchair neoliberalism, the Ezra Recliner.
Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. Very much appreciated.
We should just lay off people, right?
I would not say it that way. I wouldn't say just lay off people. I think that's
no, not just, but
doing,
step one.
I wouldn't. I mean, do you think that's step one? Do you buy this Doge's preparation for AGI?
I think maybe a fifth of them think that. Maybe it's step 2 or step 3, but it's a pretty early step, right?
I think that the question of AI, of AGI in the federal government, in anywhere, and this is one reason I've not bought this argument about Doge, is you have to ask, well, what is this AI or AGI doing? What is its value function? What prompt have you given it? What have you asked it to execute across the government and how, right? Alignment, which we have primarily talked about in terms.
I'm sorry, but like if your idea, we're getting derailed so fast, but like just if you find the idea of self-improvement, which is the essence of working out, anathema to your existence, like I don't accept that. I reject the idea that people aren't capable of self-improvement. And like, I understand.
You don't need artificial general intelligence to know that discount Patton elementary school version sounds boring.
Oh,
of whether or not
big yikes! Like, fuck off, dude. Like, when you read a book, you're working out your brain. Like, the idea that there aren't many different kinds of ways to work out or better yourself, and the idea that disabled people can't do like something like that. The idea that like disabled people can't like better themselves in some form or capacity. I'm not asking you guys to like walk when you can't walk. I'm asking you guys to figure out a way to better yourselves. Every single person that exists can better themselves in some way. Figure out that way. Like, damn. I don't know each and every person's situation, but like, should at least be open to the idea that like one can improve one's circumstances or life or existence. And I just, the rejection of that idea, I don't understand it.
The AI, the superintelligence, makes us all into paper clips is a constant question of just, near-term systems as well. And I think the question of how should we prepare for AGI or for AI in the federal government, so first has to do with deciding what we would like the AI or the AGI to do. That could be different things in different areas. My sense from talking to a bunch of people in the companies has sort of helped me conceptualize this better. Yeah,
like I don't know, like a lot of people struggle with lots of different kinds of disability. I'm just saying, figure out the way that like working out, i.e. bettering yourself in some way, can like be doable, because everyone can do it.
Is that
if you are conscious, you can do it.
First thing I would do is sort of begin to ask, what do I think the opportunities of AI are scientifically and in terms of different kinds of discoveries? So let's take drug development. I am pretty convinced that within the next 5 to 10 years, that the set of tools we are developing using AI, not all of it AGI, some of it are narrow systems like the AlphaFold system, should get us to the place where the systems are developing much higher probability, molecules with a much higher probability of actually making it through trial and doing something beneficial in the human body. I think we are getting better sort of models of different parts of the human body, right? ARC is trying to create a cell model right now. And I think this is going to work. So then I think you need to actually ask, how do you prepare other parts of the system to absorb what in theory will be a rapid increase in valuable candidates?
Yeah, so more.
But that's not what AGI is. Like,
Casual reminder that the person who had the best understanding of how black holes worked was in a wheelchair for literal decades.
True. Mind like a vice. So, like, I just... The idea here that Ezra Klein is putting forward is, like, this idea that, like, well, AI can be really useful in mapping patterns in the human genome, and we could find a lot of really cool and lovely things from that, but that's not AGI. That's not what was asked. And then the idea that because it might be good at a specialized niche like field, that it should then solve problems outside of like genomics or anything like that, like that is a leap that is crazy. It's a crazy leap to make. As crazy as assuming that someone who has a PhD in one field is automatically an expert in all other fields. Oh, look, I have a PhD in genomics. Let me jump in and do your surgery. Like, that's crazy. No.
Bureaucrats for the FDA if we need
so
them.
Maybe
even though AI could evaluate those drugs. But a lot of government, we could just lay people off.
You also need to make it much, much easier to get rats, monkeys, and human beings for testing, right? That would be another piece of it. It's actually extremely difficult right now. And I think you got to go sort of one by one like that. I mean, one of the reasons...
Now, I'm not an expert and I don't work in the sciences, but my understanding is that it is not, in fact, that difficult to get mice for experimentation.
I'm not probably in agreement that the first thing you're going to want to do with AI is lay a bunch of people off. Is that the first thing AI is going to do is create much more of something, some kind of information that is going to overwhelm choke points somewhere.
Yeah, but we are already seeing that, and the evidence unilaterally points towards the fact that what information is being created by AI is by and large redundant or junk, useless noise. And that is the natural conclusion. If you think about this for 5 seconds, is it easier to mass produce meaningless gibberish, or is it easier to mass produce novel new insights and knowledge? And the reality is it's way easier to mass produce junk and useless information, signal noise, essentially. And that is what AI can do. That's why when you see like AI videos, of like different things going viral on TikTok, it's just like meaningless drivel. It's insane hallucinatory garbage. And like that's the kind of information that is being created. It's noise. So like, the idea that like, oh, well, it's noise now, but like one day it will be refined into like useful information. But like, will it? Can it? No.
So if what you're basically doing with AI in terms of thinking about opportunities,
and the reason I say will it or can it, and that the answer is no, is because we are not capable of creating artificial general intelligence right now, because that implies like something that is able to consciously think the way we are, or at least some way similar to how we think. Have agency.
This jump provided by the Silicon Valley tech bros will be the jump home.
Sake Tanuki, I would pay good money to watch a movie about essentially a bunch of dipshit CEOs quantum leaping.
The AI is about to proffer a much higher hit rate of good things we should do, then probably, at least for some period of time, you need a higher rate of ways to do them. Now, that doesn't mean
reallocate labor to the growing sectors, right? If you need more people in the FDA, lay people off other places, and then when you have bottlenecks, throw labor at them, if that's what's called for. But you can't just always think the number of people working in the government should expand.
I don't always think the number. Well, I actually probably think that as you know, the civilian side of the federal government has held steady at about 2 million people since, what is it?
But consultants, 50s? What everyone thinks of them.
But I think you would not want that, right? I think you would actually want to, this is something I sort of talk about in the book. I think you'd actually want to insource a lot of what the government does. Look, the reason I'm being squirrely at this moment, I will give you a non-squirrely answer now, is because I don't like the way Musk is doing it. If you had asked me 3 months ago, and I believe today what I believed 3 months ago, I would have said the civil service rules we have are archaic. They make it much too difficult to hire and fire. They make it much too difficult to...
If you'd asked me three months ago about the entire thesis of my book about how regulations make it impossible to do anything, and I would have said, yeah, of course I agree with the fundamental premise of my book. But if you're asking me now, I'm in a really uncomfortable spot, considering that the Trump administration has fired hundreds of thousands of people.
If we do eventually make AGI, in the sense of being able to actually think like a human, we shouldn't treat them how these tech bros want to, because that'll just be enslavement of a sapient being.
Yeah, true. Also, AI has niche uses within a lab. The use AI does not have is for the general public's consumption of AI-generated content. That's not actually a use case for AI. It is negative in almost every conceivable way that it manifests, whether it is the tendency for it to create delusional people, or the tendency to facilitate self-harm up to and including suicide in youth who are struggling. Whether it is when it comes down to like providing factual information that you can rely on. None of the things that that is put forward about AI is at all even close to being okay and suitable for public use. And the way that these companies are going about talking about AI as if it is essentially, a future tech that is flawless. It's all a marketing line. It's all a fucking marketing line. and people are falling for it, hook, line, and sinker.
It still took me way too long to realize that Alan Tudyk voiced Sonny in Robot.
I think I knew that. I do think I knew that. Fun movie fact that I did not know, Danny DeVito directed the hit and beloved classic Matilda, which I did not know and is delightful to know. And Sassy Sassa, that is exactly what is going on here, right? Which is that venture capitalists are dumb as a box of rocks. And much like how for a long time, anything with blockchain in its like venture capital startup, hashtags would immediately get way more views and way more attention and way more startup money than things that didn't have blockchain in it. We are seeing a similar thing with AI, except to a degree previously unimaginable. I want to throw out that today the Financial Times found that right now AI speculation makes up about 40% of the entire United States GDP. And that is really fucking bad. I don't know if anyone needs to have this spelled out why that's bad, but it's pretty bad. Like that is something where once that bubble pops, a lot of us are not going to be okay by extension.
I'd be far happier if venture capitalists was the reboot of the Venture Bros.
God, that'd actually be fire socket. Thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. God.
Reorganize systems, right? It actually is the case. Say what you will about whether or not you think what they're doing is a good idea. It is the case that it used to be much more in the president's power to reorganize, create, fold agencies, sub-agencies, etc. And we have, I think, made it too hard by a lot to restructure and manage the administrative state. And so the thing that I would like to do is create much more flexibility and much more power with the people we call bureaucrats. I would like people to have...
The idea that you're making this argument when Donald Trump is gutting government workers, this is some of the most insane shit I've ever heard in my life.
Much more agency, much more ability to actually hire and fire. I would not want to do it indiscriminately, right? The idea that just everybody in the federal...
Yeah, well, I had the brilliant idea of what if we just fired all of the bad workers and kept all of the good ones? That's my Ezra Klein's idea. It's just like, oh, okay, congrats. No one's ever considered doing that before.
Workforce is probably bad, and on the margin, getting rid of any of them for any reason is probably good. It's just not an idea I share. So the thing where they fired all the probationary employees, that was disproportionately young people and people who had just had promotions.
I'm not sure that's happening, by the way. I know it's been in media, but
I've known people who've gotten fired.
What? Well, I'd like just an insane you don't know that that's happening? What are you talking about? What do you mean? God, just a general estimate so far is that around 300,000 U.S. federal civil service layoffs have been announced. 300,000, but that's not happening. But that's just not happening. Deeply unserious people. If you are at all in any position of influence in politics, the fact that you pay attention to these people is embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
I guess I would say. So something seems to be happening around that. I'm not sure they've done it at the mass level.
Are tech bros stupid willfully or as personality? It's the financial incentive. They're financially incentivized to be morons. And then the social isolation keeps them morons, Because ultimately, you don't need to be smart to have a lot of money. You just hire someone to be smart with your money for you.
But they do appear to have done it to some degree in some places. I am seeing a lot of...
actually, the only way to make things better is to make things worse. I'm very smart.
Yeah, RPG Lilac, thank you for the $5 super chat. And yeah, I mean, Ezra Klein is basically the I am very intelligent meme.
Of extremely indiscriminate work doing. People who, for instance, it took a long time to recruit into the federal government because it was hard and they had to get exemptions in order to give them sort of higher pay, right? That's a thing that happens a lot. And it's like a long time of bureaucratic fighting. On the one hand,
and I said, Seduction Productions, I want to co-sign that. They seem educated but not intelligent. And I do think, and I say this as somebody with like a college degree, in English literature, but like being educated doesn't mean that you are intelligent or smart or capable of in-depth analysis, right? Like at the end of the day, you made it through college, you have a piece of paper, good for you. Now you need to continue to demonstrate intelligence,
Took so long to get them in is a problem I want to solve. On the other hand, indiscriminately now knocking them out is not something I would like to see. So the question of I think the question of how to ready the government for AI is a real one. I would like to see a little bit of what this AI looks like before I start doing mass firings to support it. And I would like to decide, like actually describe aims for this AI. So you said this a couple times. What should the aims of the AI be, right? You're not like a person who just thinks the category of AI is undifferentiated. You need to tell it what you want it to do, or at least tell it what you want it to figure out to do.
Oh, sure. But
what is it doing here?
I'm struck by how small many companies can become. So Midjourney, which you're familiar with.
Can we just like point out, like, the direction this is going is a bunch of dipshits just having absolutely no fucking idea what AI is as a technology and what to do with it. And one of the things I want to point out here is that, like, the US is far from the only country where basically the AI hype has brain poisoned not just like average people, but actually like the entire government. And so I want to introduce you to this article from September 12th of last year from the BBC. World's first AI minister will eliminate corruption, says Albania's PM, which, one, that's not how corruption works, because you really have to wonder when it comes to who programmed the AI minister, what the biases programmed in are, because you have to consider that for anything. But also, I want to reiterate, Albania has named an AI minister to its government. You have given like a fucking algorithm control over policy that means life and death for people in your country. This, like, God, these things are not, like, they don't think, chat. They don't cognate. They don't have thought processes. What they do is essentially a glorified Google search using like a gigantic like server farm somewhere to do the processing, and then they shit out the most likely combination of words to fit the prompt that you put out there. It is serving you content tailored to you and the prompts you put in. That's it. It is a glorified Google search, and it's killing the planet. And it doesn't give you accurate information, because guess what? Did Google ever give you 100% accurate results each time?
That's going to make peace talks between Albania and Azerbaijan difficult.
I mean, not... I mean, yeah. to be honest, yeah. More like autocomplete on steroids. I mean, yeah, same. I would argue same difference, but yeah. God. I just... Like, this technology is already convincing children to kill themselves. Like, when you give it actual political power...
Could I recommend the Lemonade Stand podcast as an example of how dumb folks who subscribe to abundance can get? It's made up of a video game YouTuber who loves AI, an econtuber, and a merch RUNR.
I will try to remember that one, but that sounds so miserable to me. Thank you for the $5 dono, though. It's just like, this isn't the person. It doesn't understand anything. It doesn't have convictions. It has biases within its algorithms from its like creators, right? Like, that's it. And like, I feel like Tyler Cowen is very much in the vein of like, oh, well, yeah, pretty soon we'll have AI presidents. And I'm sorry, you gonna, if the country goes to war under an AI president, are you gonna fight and die for a fucking AI? You're gonna fight and die for the leader of your country being like just the statistically likely things you want to say? That's, you want to hear? Like, nah, fuck that.
At the peak of its innovation was 8 people, and that was not mainly a story about consultants. Sam Altman says it will be possible to have billion-dollar companies run by one person. I suspect that's 2 or 3 people, but nonetheless.
Yeah, we'll have well, we'll have billion-dollar companies run by one person, and like, what could go wrong? What could go wrong? What could go wrong on a planet of billions of people where one person owns the entirety of $1 billion company? What could go wrong, everybody? Never have any of these people stopped for a goddamn second to imagine whether or not their head is up their own ass right now,
Les, that seems not so far off. So it seems to me there really ought to be significant parts of the government, by no means all, where you could have a much smaller number of people.
Oh, God, yeah. I saw the AI, like, calling an AI slurs proves you're racist. Yeah, nah. Sorry. AI is not a person. It is not even a consciousness. And, like, I'm sorry. Like, calling a robot is not offensive misuse of language. Like, I'm sorry. But when you when you're walking down the street and your like eye gets poked by like a tree branch and you go, "Fuck you, tree," that you're not being like you kick it. I'm sorry, you're not like that you're not abusing a human being. It's not the equivalent. Was that the clanker discourse? Yeah, it got really weird on Blue Sky.
Correcting the AIs, it would be the same people at the top giving the orders as today, more or less, and just a lot fewer staff. I don't see.
Honestly, I object to it even being called a slur to call a non-sentient thing a name. Like, that's not a slur. Like when Jesus Christ in the Bible, like, tells a fig tree to fuck off, and then it withers and dies, he didn't, that's not a murder, because a tree isn't a person. Like, I feel like this is almost self-evident. When Jesus Christ curses that tree verbally, that isn't him doing a hate crime to the tree.
That can't be the case.
I think that I agree with you that in theory should be the case. But I do think that as you actually see it emerge from, like, in theory should be the case till we figured out a way to do it.
What's the slur for trees? Green shits.
It's going to turn out that things the federal government does are not all that like type up.
But it's so hard to get rid of people. Don't you need to start with the chainsaw? Iterate, maybe the next Democratic administration rehires what's needed. And
I don't think you start with the chainsaw in this way, because one, you're breaking things right now that AI is not about to fix.
Also, like, I guess we've gotten to the first point of real contention between these two, which is that Tyler Cohen's just like, why can't you just fire the entirety of the government and replace it with AI? And Ezra Klein is like, well, you can't do that because AI is not capable of replacing the entire government yet. But maybe it will be one day. Like, it's all nuts. Their ideas are not that far apart.
I think you have to have a very low opinion of the federal government and what the people in it do. And maybe, we have different opinions of this, probably, to think this is all going to be, you're not going to break things that were needed. And I worry that a lot of things I'm seeing them break, right? Like people who I know who worked at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau on, financial scams. I don't think knocking them out of government is going to create a macro problem in the U.S. economy. But like, I do know these people were getting money back for consumers who had gotten scammed. And frankly, I think the capacity to scam people on AI is about to go much higher. And so I think that a good thing that was happening is going to happen less well right now. My gut is that AI, as it emerges into the kind of view and flexibility where we could integrate it into core systems, which it's not at yet in most cases, is going to create places where you need to expand and places where you need to contract. So that's why I was sort of...
Man, the assumption that we're going to be able to scale this technology and make it good enough to actually use in that way is insane to me. Keep in mind, and I've been saying this for a bit now, the amount of money that is necessary to continue expanding AI is going to require the entirety of all venture capital on Earth by next summer. Like, the capacity for this to actually expand is basically maxed out. There's a reason why OpenAI is, like, trying to be like, oh, yeah, Sora 2 can now use, we're just going to use copywritten content. You want to put Batman into your AI videos? Go for it. Go for it. No one will sue us if we get this technology right. And That's insane. That you only are doing that because you need to continue to hype up the company to maximize the investment capital. And like that is quickly hitting a ceiling, considering not a single one of these AI companies is turning a profit. Not one goddamn one of them. None of them. None of them. And they are not going to be able to within the next 5 years or 10 years or even 20 years. Because the amount of money that is required to just prop them up is unsustainable. Wait, is his position seriously, yeah, AI is super scamming people right now, but in 5 years, maybe it can invent new drugs for us? Yes, that is his position.
Trying to ground this in an actual example, like drug development. If it is throwing off way more good candidates for drug development, yes, there are parts of the system that can contract, parts of it they're going to need to expand. Energy, again, it's like if you read any of these projects, right, or any of these slightly more utopic visions of AI, which I certainly hope we're going to live in, the idea is that it's going to throw off a bunch of realizations and discovery.
Yeah, but LA, there's a difference between the kind of AI scientists use to do their research and the large language models that are being put out there right now. There is no reason they need to continue manufacturing, $100 billion plus AI facilities across the country to run just the AI necessary for scientific research. What they are trying to do is not build AI for scientific research. They are trying to build AI for public consumption. And there is a very big difference between those two things. One is a niche tool for a very niche group of people conducting niche research. And the other is we want every, 10 billion plus people using our AI technology and paying us for it. And that's the only way we're going to be profitable. Damn any of the externalities, damn any of the costs, damn any of the lives that will be lost as a result of pollution, global warming, or just mental decline due to AI usage. Like, there's just such a difference between these things. And we are so far away from even that niche use case being able to be automated without an entire, squadron of scientists to make use of it, and for it to be just shitting out new drugs all the time. It's just, we're so far away from this. It's unrealistic.
About how we can make much more energy dense materials, and so lay down everything from solar panels to, get better doing advanced geothermal. And that would mean some parts of DOE maybe become less important. It would also mean our ability to permit and do other things becomes more important. I am not sure, particularly at the beginning, what you need is less so much as the ability to reallocate. Now, look, your view that you do mass firings and then you hire back what you need. I mean, I guess I understand where you're coming from on that, but I want to see the thing we are doing the firings for working first.
Also just throwing this out there, but if you fire a bunch of people and then hire back what you need, the people with the expertise that you fired aren't going to want to come back and work for you, because you ruined any kind of promise of job stability that you could possibly make. Why would anyone do that? Why would any of the specialized workers required agree to come back? Most specifically, we don't need to create new content with AI. Humans love that. We need AI to dig through data and present it to humans to look deeper. Throw AI at untranslated text, use it for translation, use it to probe unsolved math problems. This tech could be used to make our lives so much better, but it's being used for the most facile dreck. True, Salmon Moose. And I even in those cases, right? You're still going to need humans to look at that output and refine it. You're going to need people even with AI as a tool. And these people reject the human element of society and industry because they live with this capitalist fantasy of work being done without workers. It's the same fantasy that has always persisted throughout the capitalist history, which is this idea of essentially, early on it manifested in the use of slave labor, and the dehumanization of slave labor, and the idea that, we did this with slaves, not with real people. And this is just like a modern incarnation of it, except instead they believe they've created a machine that can subvert the need for other human beings, and they just haven't done that. But the fantasy persists.
Not fire people and hope that Sam Altman's view of billion-dollar companies with 3 people is actually going to work at the Social Security Administration in the year of our Lord 2027.
But you know full well Steve Tellis's work on kludgeocracy, right? We have at least 50 years of the kludges just accumulating. Everyone in government knows about this. It's not some secret. Various administrations have tried to address it. Al Gore did a bit. That was fine, but it didn't really stop it. So I don't see that there's any other recipe besides quite a bit of disruption. Again, there'll be future administrations to sort it out. Like the New Deal agencies, they weren't so great to begin with. They didn't have experience or data or staffing. But over time...
Yeah, like the New Deal agencies, the thing that I am vocally advocating against. Yeah, let's just, let's emulate that by getting rid of them. It's such an insane take, dog.
Pieces fell into place. And
these people want to dismantle everything that made this country like somewhat functional for like the last century. Like the modest, like compromised social and economic reforms of the New Deal. They want to roll all of it back to being like essentially robber baron times, where you live in a company town shack, and if you say boo about it, they send a Pinkerton to kill you or rough up your family. Like that. This is the kind of world they want to live in because they are so alienated from the actual, the actual labor that goes into creating their products and creating their companies, that they believe, well, frankly, they'll never see the ugly side of it. They never see the Pinkerton rough up the family. They just see a spreadsheet, and then they put the call on down the line of different middle management and bureaucrats within their company that all serve to alienate them from the actual brutal reality of what the working conditions are like, what the dissatisfaction of the workers is like, until all of a sudden it turns out some middle management guy goes, oh, you know what? We could bring in a Pinkerton, rough them up. And you know what? The people at the top of that hierarchy, they never have to see the rough up. They never have to even deal with it. They're all up in their Elysium towers.
The options are just more and more Steve Tellis kludgeocracy, or we take some chances today and do some things that actually hurt, right? And then over an 8 to 12 year period, sort it out with AI, and most of all with future administrations. I don't really see what the alternative is.
Well, I mean, I think there are 2 questions here. Let's say there's a good version of this and a bad version of this.
I do want to say critical support for Nintendo in this trying time. Nintendo has come out against AI generative use in art, and I, for one, am here for it. And frankly, any gaming company these days taking a stand against AI, has my vote of confidence.
And I'll sort of outline the way I see both. Let me start with a good version of this. If I was saying sort of what I hope the story of this period will ultimately be, like I have to sort of describe this like thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, which I think is a little bit of what you're saying. My critique of Democrats is they became culturally process and bureaucracy obsessed. They saw like the state, and inside their own agencies, inside things they in theory run, they were anything a lawyer said you had to take as holy writ, right? No matter how.
Yeah, but we now know that's bullshit. We now know that's bullshit. We didn't have to do that. Like, Ezra Klein's entire thesis is absolutely obliterated by the existence of the Trump administration and what they have done.
How off the wall or stringent the interpretation of what was clearly a looser original statute was. It was careful. Every process had to be followed to a T. And Democrats, in theory, the party of government, cannot run government effectively because for some of the reasons you just described and some of the reasons I just described. So then in comes Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And if they have proven anything, it is that a lot of the things that previous administrations, by the way, Democratic and Republican, treated as inviolable were just not. They weren't real. They were norms, not rules. Norms, not laws. It is clear that some of the firings are illegal. Clearly not all of them. It is clear that some of the withholding of money is illegal. My gut is, having seen the 5-4 decision the other day at the Supreme Court, which went against the Trump administration, but it was a 5-4 decision. It's not going to be all of it. There is a lesson that is being taught here by Musk, which I think liberals have to look at very uncomfortably, which is that things that they treated as facts of the system that could not be in any way altered, and then used as excuses for low-performing government services, for genuinely, probably what Elon Musk is calling waste and what I would call waste are not the same thing, but there is what I would think of as a lot of waste. They allowed a civil service system to emerge and evolve that everybody knows is crazy. Everybody knows it's crazy. And so here comes Musk and Trump antithesis, right? I don't think they're trying to make things work. I don't think it is zero-based budgeting. I don't think they're holding things to a standard.
Oh, okay. Quick correction on Nintendo opposing AI. A Japanese politician the other day, Satoshi Asano, said that Nintendo was going to be engaging in lobbying against generative AI use. It turns out Nintendo issued a statement saying, no, actually, we are not engaged in lobbying against AI, but we will, however, take any necessary actions against the infringement of our intellectual property rights, which is, a little bit of a loosey-goosey answer, but here we go.
I think they have cut off huge amounts of life-saving work. I think they are creating a lot of risk in parts of the system that could really blow up. I think what they want is control, not a working government.
No, I'm not defending what they are doing.
I'm not saying I think you're a little, at least I think on the margin.
Some parts of the approach are necessary. It's not even clear to me what they're doing. I
think it's not all.
It's not even clear to me what they're doing. I couldn't even be bothered to look into how many people were fired by this administration. What is it, 10? Oh, it's 300,000. Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry about that. This is a whole lot of... I'm sorry. I see very little daylight between these two men's positions.
It's clear to them. And then my hope is that the next administration, if this all doesn't blow up in our faces in a truly terrible way, is able to do synthesis, right? Which is to not try to destroy the federal government, but to take the lesson of Doge seriously. That a lot of what...
Take the lesson of Doge seriously. Ezra Klein is a fucking conservative, man. People have been pushing back on me from saying this about him, but dude, I'm sorry. You look at 300,000 dedicated public servants being fired for no reason, and you're like, well, we gotta take the lesson of this seriously. And in his mind, it's yes, social norms and regulations, uncodified regulations can be broken, and truly you can do whatever you want within the confines outside of that. And it's but we're seeing that that's bad, actually. We're seeing that that is not, in fact, helping us. And it kind of seems like maybe that's not the path we should go down.
Liberals, a lot of what the establishment was treating as it just has to be this way. These are the rules. These are the processes. There's nothing to be done about it. No, it actually seems you can do quite a lot of it.
The difference between a neoliberal and neocon is how long you pause between fragments in your sentences.
It's true, Sake Tanuki. The most important ideological difference of all. I will point out here that, this man just finished writing a book about how regulations and the way things are done within the government slow things down and make things too expensive, etc. That's what the Abundance book is in a nutshell about, right? And that the solution forward is actually to, slash through those regulations, etc., and make things cheaper to build and cheaper to do. It's the typical neoliberal bullshit. And what he's basically saying here is that, well, when I wrote this book, I thought that all of these things were sacrosanct, and I just want to pause and think, you thought uncodified rules were enough to stop this system in its tracks? You thought things that weren't written into law or things that weren't like written down as guidelines for an agency or anything like that, you thought with just these informal arrangements, these gentlemen's agreements were infallible and inviolable. Why? Like, sure, you could be like, well, you saw it in the Obama and the Bush and the Trump administration. It's just kind of like, well, it shouldn't take that much of a leap in imagination to understand that actually those are not as binding as actual laws and regulations.
I thought a lot about the payment systems and the Treasury privacy data and how many social insurance programs worked poorly because they couldn't get any access to that data. Like, I've heard about this a lot in the design of systems beforehand. And this turned out to not be the case. Like, you could get access to the data if you really wanted it. There's no reason we needed to have the software procurement systems that led to healthcare.gov. We just didn't. And it is true that then over time, the system adapted somewhat in that area. USGS, US Digital Service, and 18F were significant there, and they've sort of destroyed them. But there was a lot you could do. So that, I think, is the good version, where what we've had is a kind of fire, and it'll do things that I am very unhappy about. But it will also open the way to something that is not as relentlessly and illogically as bureaucratized as the way government was run under, say, the Biden administration, and is not as destructive and corrupted as what we're seeing under Trump and Musk. I think
I think what we're seeing is exactly what we see on the Supreme Court, which is that the Supreme Court moves fast when it wants to, and it moves slow when it wants to. And the idea that the Biden administration couldn't have moved through different policies or agendas through faster, that's just false. It's just false. And it's not even a thing where, like, Biden would have had to fire 300,000 federal workers in order to move faster. It's just that the directive needed to have urgency behind it. And Biden was not a president who believed in doing anything urgently. And it led us back into this mess.
That version of there's no choice, but we have to come in and do something like this is they actually don't know what they're doing. This isn't zero-based budgeting. They don't know who they're firing. They don't really know what the people do, right? They've not evaluated.
Partly the reason for that is because they're firing people via AI, the thing both of them are talking about so glowingly.
Things on a cost-benefit scale. They're trying to use loopholes. And it does turn out that the system manages a lot of risk. And, most of the risk it manages in any given year, it's going to be fine if you don't have anybody there managing it. But when then things do go wrong, when you do roll snake eyes, and you always do eventually.
Yeah, that's kind of why a government needs the bureaucracy to slow things down and, help mitigate that risk of a failure. The smaller it is, the more catastrophic a failure state is. Come on, Ezra, you're supposed to be a smart man.
It's going to turn out we really needed some of this, right? And you see them kind of freaking out about this on the daily, basically, right? They go fire all these people who are on nuclear safety and don't even realize they've done it, and then are desperately trying to get back in touch with them to come back so we don't have huge problems in the nuclear system. Or, Musk saying that he didn't mean to turn off all the payments on the sort of Ebola work, but it turns out they did, and then saying that he turned it back on. And in fact, you talk to people on the ground there and he didn't. So I'm worried about risk exploding, which is why I wouldn't have wanted to see it done this way. But I think that people who are in my position, and I think people who care about effective government, really need to look with some anger and shame about the way in which the people who believe in government basically gave up on government reform and left that to this kind of process.
If we think steady state, when I look at...
Well, the people who believe in government only have so much say in how the federal government is structured. Congress is supposed to... Like a lot of what he's talking about comes down to inaction in Congress. Congress is supposed to make laws. Congress is supposed to grease these wheels. Congress is supposed to function. And the problem with Congress over the last, 30, 40 years is that Congress has slowly stopped functioning, evidenced by the fact that we are now in a second Trump shutdown. The last one was the longest one ever recorded in American history. We'll see how long this one lasts.
The private sector, it seems to me, large foundations, charitable foundations, they're not better run than smaller ones, on average. If someone says, well, 5 years from now, we could have a USAID that maybe even gives away more money, is more effective, and total personnel is 300 or 400 people plus AGI. That seems entirely plausible to me, and actually a
I think, give it another 5 years, and I think I could replace my wife with an AI. It could do all the things my wife does right now. It could nag me. It could tell me, it's not in the mood. It could do a lot of different things that my wife does. Okay? And give it 5 more years, and I can finally get a divorce and have an AI that I can turn on and off, unlike my wife.
good goal. Like, could you imagine supporting, a future vision for USAID with 350 employees plus AGI, way less with the US-based contractors, get rid of that part of the law. That's just domestic, corporate cronyism welfare, and give away more money and have way fewer people. Why isn't that a good vision?
I could imagine that.
No, you can't. Like, why isn't that a good vision? Because it's on par with the vision of what if we just had like a gumdrop candy mountain? What would you do? How like what if we did that? What if the Rocky Mountains all turned out to be made out of sugar? And the streams coming down from its glacier melt were actually ice cream melt, and it was actually like shakes. And just the streams that trickle into the ocean just turned into hot fudge. What about that? What if in 5 years that happened, huh? What if that happened? And it's like, isn't that a good vision? What do you have against candy? And it's like, what do I have against candy? I have nothing against candy, but like, this isn't a realistic vision of the future, man. That's the problem. The problem is, like, you can wish for that all you want, but like it ain't so.
I think USAID is a weird one to imagine would work like that, because I think what you would then get, I mean, somebody...
I'm sorry, but also the idea that in order to achieve a 350-person USAID, that at first it is necessary to close it all down, fire almost everybody, cease its operations, when hundreds of millions of people depend on that aid to not starve to death. Like, if you actually cared about the mission that USAID does, it's one of the few things, and we can point to like different contentious points of its history for sure. But like, generally speaking, a lot of people rely on it to not die. And if you're talking about any kind of improvement to that system, you need to implement those improvements slowly and carefully, because so many lives rely on it. But like, this man doesn't care about like the people USAID is helping. Neither do the Republicans writ large. And frankly, I'm going to go out on a limb. Neither does Ezra Klein.
Is actually providing somewhere what USAID provides. And if it's not the contractors like out there working in Africa and working in Latin America and working in other places, like, if you imagine, let me try to flesh this vision out, right? Let's say you fire, USAID is functionally gutted now, so you're going to be down at that sort of low level of staffing. And then you have, in 2028, we have something we're willing to call AGI. And you're basically getting AGI to do the work that GiveWell was doing, right, at a sort of more AGI-like level, and evaluate what is the highest benefit per dollar that we can spend through USAID. And it's doing a better job of that. Then, of course, like, that is going to have to be spent out in the real world. Vaccines have to go into people's arms. HIV, AIDS, retroviral, drugs have to be handed to people. The AGI is not going to do that. And so then you have this question of, in this world, are you expanding staffing somewhere? I'm fine with that world. My disagreement with what is happening right now is that I really think it is important to be clear that the disagreement is about whether or not we should be doing aid, right? Not over what aid is effective. They could have gone in and restructured USAID and what it spends money on.
Oh, look at that. Ezra Klein clearing the bar that I put in hell. Surprisingly, I guess we have to raise it a notch.
They have not articulated any desire to save lives of people in other countries at all. And this is where I think this kind of conversation can get a little...
What if Eleanor Roosevelt could fly? Think of the strategic advantages. Yeah, what if women really could levitate on brooms, huh? Did you ever think of that?
Hiding the ball. I think it's efficiency is always towards what, right? What are you trying to make more efficient? And there are always values in that. And the language of efficiency is often a way of trying to hide the values. But yes, the question hypothetically, could you imagine a world where aggressive reform of USAID led to a USAID that was much more laser focused on public health provision and maybe some forms of functionally cash transfer programs, and probably support for certain kinds of government functions in other countries. And administering that required much less administrative staff in Washington and in the US? Absolutely. But that's a goal you can define and work towards right now. AGI is not even really doing anything in that hypothetical. What's doing something in the hypothetical is having a coherent vision of foreign aid, and then a willingness to upend the bureaucracy to achieve it, which on the one hand, I don't think you've seen necessarily from a lot of the nonprofit industrial complex, as it gets called. But on the other hand, on the values level, you certainly have not seen from this crew.
At the end of your podcasts, you ask your guests to recommend.
Before we move on from this, because they're about to move on, I just want to throw out there, it's an interesting example to pick, right? USAID. That's an interesting example to pick because USAID is like 0.1% of your tax dollar, 0.05% of your tax dollar. Like it's an incredibly minuscule amount of what you pay in taxes. And that, like, the idea that that's the go-to example of how the United States is going to save all this money with AGI. And I just want to say, I find it interesting that Tyler Cowen doesn't bring it to the idea of, well, you're comfortable putting a program that saves the lives of millions of people under AI. Are you comfortable putting AGI in charge of the U.S. military? If our goal is to cut and save money, surely the U.S. military, one of the largest expenditures we have, should be under general intelligence. But I have a feeling when you put it in those terms to these people, they don't actually think or want what they are considering AGI to be in charge of the U.S. military. This isn't... I do not believe them when they talk about these cuts, because I think when you make the stakes far more existential, they are unwilling to put themselves on the line like that. Yeah, the black hole of money, the military.
And 3 books maybe they've been reading lately. I'll ask you to recommend 3 travel spots. It doesn't have to have been recent, and it could be around the block in Brooklyn. It could be anywhere. But tell us just 3 spots where people ought to go or think about and why they're in.
Sam and Moose, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs.
Interesting or important to you?
So my father's Brazilian, and I've been to Brazil many times, and I think of Rio de Janeiro as I just believe it is one of the most beautiful and vibrant and dynamic.
Okay, I've decided I don't care about the last couple of minutes of their conversation. I gotta say, we're in wacky times. We started this journey off by taking a look at a viral article written by a 63-year-old man talking about how he wants to see more virgins in media and that he thinks AI is a great way to get more virgins on screen. And then we followed that rabbit hole because, it's published on the Free Press, and Barry Weiss, the editor-in-chief of that outlet, is going to be in charge of CBS. And we followed that and we found out that, oh, wait, he also is friends with and agrees with the guy who wrote an article about how, cuckoldry should be more severely punished. Even consensual cuckoldry should be more severely punished than someone who does essentially rape the right way, which is just insane. And this guy thinks that man is the gentle rape guy is a brilliant mind. And then we follow that and we find out that the post he made referencing this his friend was on a website for the Mercatus Center, or for Mercatus scholars. And we followed that. We found out the Mercatus Center is a think tank that was founded in like the 70s by the guy who is literally the CEO of Koch Enterprises. One of the number one right-hand guys of the Koch brothers. And this guy is a scholar and is supported by the Mercatus Center. And in fact, that entire video that we just watched was posted on the Mercatus Center's YouTube channel. And that Ezra Klein is on this channel, making the case for abundance. And wow, they both love that gentle, silent rape guy. And they talk about it and mention him positively in this video. And also, it's just we've spiraled. The journey has been long and winding, and finally we arrive here at the end of all of it. And I gotta say, this is why neoliberals aren't your friends. When you see a neoliberal abundance type like Ezra Klein, he is prone to buddying up with all of these conservative intellectual types. These are not people who are serious. They are conservative wankers, dedicated to wonkery and wankery. That's it. They're there talking about how, like, oh, well, what if in, 5 years we have AI supercomputers that can, shit for you. And like, what do you mean? What if we have AI supercomputers that can shit for you and show you a bunch of virgins? And it's just like, what kind of reality are you living in? Where you want these people to formulate the policy that is going to govern you and your children and your children's children. This is not serious. And the reason it's not serious is because it serves the current power. It serves the current administration, and it is designed to muck us all down in this deep, unserious drivel. It is designed to waste your time and your brain power, and these people know that on some level. Ezra Klein knows this on some level. That when he is going out there and making the case for abundance, he is taking up oxygen from, like, the actual issues of the day that we need to solve. Whether it's climate change, or the creeping authoritarianism, or the rise of fascist rhetoric, or the rise of far-right political violence, or the need to actually organize on the ground in our communities to keep our neighbors and our friends and our families safe. So much of that gets sucked up by these people. And the goal of it is to destabilize us to such a degree that these neoliberals effectively have no competition. That when it comes for, like, the pendulum to swing and Trump's time to get out of office, they do it so that we can be fighting and bickering amongst ourselves enough so that they can just swing right in. The neoliberals can swing right in on all of that donor money, and we get left in the dust with nothing. And what we have and what we need is solidarity, okay? We need to organize. So I'm going to encourage you all. We're coming up October 18th. That is the next mass day of mobilization. Make sure it is marked on your calendars. You need to be out there for No Kings, okay? October 18th. I'm going to say it again. And this map is getting filled in more and more every day. If you don't have an event within the, 30 minutes of you, consider making your own event so that others in your community can join you in protest. And also make sure you are doing something else to organize in your community. Whether it is joining your Tesla takedown protests, joining your, Palantir takedown protests, or even if it's just joining your local Dems or joining your local DSA. And folks, I do encourage you to do either of those things. Radicalize your local Dems, make your local DSA more effective. We need people to do those two things, all right? And so please consider, if you want to organize locally with your local Dems, you can join our Discord, just !Discord in any of the chats. You'll get a link, and then reach out to Dragonfly for help to join the Dems. And if you join up to the Discord, you can also reach out to GamerG for help navigating your first steps with the DSA. Because currently, I think our consolidated membership within this community alone, at least people who have reached out and talked, we have around 40 members now within DSA. And the goal is to continue building that up, because we want folks to be effective and to organize together. Also, worth keeping in mind, folks, May 2028. All right? May 2028. I'm going to keep harping on this every fucking stream from now until the day of. Okay? May 2028. That is when all unions in this country are coming together to coordinate contract renegotiations. This isn't like a fake thing. This is being spearheaded by the UAW and Sean Fain. And again, they are getting workers at the biggest auto manufacturers in the country to renegotiate. They are trying to get teachers unions, nurses unions, service worker unions. They're trying to get every single union they can to renegotiate May 1st of 2028. Okay? That is what is required. And the goal is to make it as large as possible, as big as possible, to maximize negotiating leverage and to really build and hammer home the idea that workers are what make this country great. Always have been, always will be. So, folks, if you want to get your union involved or unionize your workplace, there are materials on this website that can help you do that. Even if you're not in a union, you can reach out and see what you can do. Let's get to work. Let's make it happen. This is, as far as I know, the closest we are feasibly gonna get to a mass strike that has ever occurred in my lifetime. When we're talking about renegotiations starting on May 1st, it is a coordination that can set up the groundwork and the cooperation between unions necessary to pull off a general strike from that moment into the future. That being said, if you've enjoyed this segment, please like, comment, and subscribe. Do the things, and share the video around. I would really appreciate it. And with that being said, let's move on.
Riverboat deck is going to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord. Riverboat Jack.